Chapter 51. 51 Ready to depart. You are listening at novelfull.audio. 51 Ready to depart. Tang Susu then took out the ammunition. It's best for everyone to prepare 2 weapons, one for personal use and one for emergencies. Make sure you have at least 200 bullets at the same time. We're going to use a lot of them on our way there. Where did you get so much ammunition? Yu Qing was shocked as he saw the boxes of ammunition on the coffee table. Tang Susu didn't even raise her head as she quickly sorted out the ammunition. There were pistol bullets, rifle bullets, and shotgun bullets, all of which matched the model of the guns they were using. The difference was that while the ammunition she bought from the system store looked like the ammunition in this world, there were plenty of differences in the details. They were twice as lethal. Besides the bullets, there were also mines and grenades, but they were all quite small and could cause damage in an area of about 10 square meters. She bought them mainly because of their ease of carrying and operation. They were also very newbie-friendly, so everyone took 2 of each. In the end, Tang Mingqi was the one who answered Yu Qing. We found them by accident when we were collecting supplies. Only then did Yu Qing suppress his doubts. However, he still couldn't come to terms with it as he watched Tang Susu handle the equipment handily. The weapons took up a lot of space and there was not much space left for food and water in the backpacks that each of them carried. Taking part in the rescue mission would not be easy. No one was being picky. They all took military hardtacks, energy bars, and mineral water. We also have some medicine. Take some. Mrs. Tang stuffed a first aid kit into everyone's backpack out of worry. Anything that couldn't be fitted in was packed into another big bag and carried into the trunk of the car. Although Yu Qing knew that the Tang family had made a lot of preparations before the apocalypse came, their preparedness still amazed him. He glanced at the cars in the garage. All of them were large vehicles that could be used in combat and could withstand rough conditions. His eyes darkened. Tang Susu walked over and said, "It's too crowded for 7 people in one car. For convenience's sake, let's have 3 people in one." Mr. Tang immediately paired up with the most difficult Tang Mingqiu. Tang Mingqi thought for a bit and joined their group. They had chosen the Range Rover that the family had driven on the night of the apocalypse. Tang Mingzhou chose the most striking Hummer H2 for Tang Susu. As soon as he opened the door, Yu Qing followed him and got into the passenger seat. However, Tang Mingzhou had no intention of starting the car. Instead, he glanced at the young lady warmly and said, "Susu." Tang Susu smiled. As expected, her big brother knew her the best. She had indeed taken a fancy to this behemoth of a car. Yu Qing frowned and explained, "The conditions of the road into the city are terrible. Even we can't control this big guy. It's not something a little girl like her can drive. Not to mention that she's not in the best of health, so we shouldn't let her add to our problems." Before he could finish his sentence, his body had already plunged forward. Yu Qing tried to hold on to the compartment in front of him, but he once again lost control and was thrown toward the car door. He cursed under his breath because of the pain, but he couldn't pay much attention to it. The red Hummer, with a very tall chassis, drifted in the garage with grace. As soon as it turned around and pointed in the right direction, it sped up with a vroom. F***ck. Qin Yu eventually grabbed onto the handle by the headliner as the car rocked. His clothes and hair were all in a mess and his handsome image was gone. What a sorry state he was in. The instigator's lips curved up slightly as she smiled with radiance. When she glanced over, despite being full of disdain, Yu Qing could only hear his heartbeat. His heart seemed to have frozen as his mind went blank. Chapter 52. 52 Suspicion. You are listening at novelfull.audio. 52 Suspicion that man could annoy Tang Susu to death. She was already ignoring him, but he was still trying to provoke her. He kept his eyes on her and he could even perform recitals better than a monk. He was so noisy that it made her head hurt. For the rest of the journey, he eventually quieted down as if he was dying. However, before the two cars could even drive out of the gate, they could hear angry curses coming from close by. "Where are you guys going? Don't go. Who told you that you can leave? Come back. Otherwise, never think about coming back. The zombies have come in and you haven't dealt with them yet. Please, you can't leave us alone." While waiting for the giant metal gate to open, Tang Susu glanced at them. She saw a group of people hiding in a villa by the gate. They were standing on the balcony and stared in their direction with anxious eyes. If you listen to their tone alone, others who don't know better might think that they are masters and we are servants who must obey their commands. Mrs. Tang was so annoyed that she was ready to argue with them. Tang Mingzhou comforted her and said, "It's not that they don't understand it. It's just that they've chosen their own self-interests and have given up on becoming decent human beings. That's right. They're smart people. If we argue with them, they'll see that we're reasonable people and start to guilt-trip us." That was also the reason Tang Susu decided to use violence against violence. The fists were often the ones upholding the truth. When the double gate had opened and then slowly closed back into the middle, Tang Susu stepped on the accelerator and bolted out, running over a terrifying zombie. The silver Range Rover followed behind, and just as they had left, the iron gates closed behind them with a bang, separating the two worlds. A group of people took the risk of chasing after them, but they only saw smoke and dust hanging in the air. The two large cars were like hot knives cutting through butter as they knocked away the approaching zombies one after another as they sped away without any problems. They did not even hesitate. The roaring of the cars' engines attracted countless zombies into the once deserted streets. When they saw the humans hiding behind the iron gates, they all dove over in excitement. "Ah! Run! What's going on? Where did they go? Isn't this place safe?" Just as they were running for their lives, Jin Dahai heard that the Tang family had left. He brought the spectacled woman and rushed over into Villa number 6. They only left in 2 cars and they had so many people with them. It's impossible for them to take that many supplies with them. I don't know if that person was telling the truth or not. Did the Tang family actually transport plenty of supplies here before the end times? Although the woman was suspicious, her voice was quivering with excitement. Either way, there has always been something strange about them. I have to figure it out no matter what. Those are all secrets to surviving in the apocalypse. We must take them over. Jin Dahai said as a glint of light appeared in his eyes. The two of them barged into the kitchen, but they did not find even a single piece of vegetable. They were not disappointed, however. It's likely that the supplies are underground. As they said that, they ran down to the basement and pushed open the warehouse door with excitement. The door opened to both sides and a gust of frigid air blew right into their faces. And then the expressions on their faces were frozen in place. "No, this is impossible." The bespectacled woman ran off in a panic. She kept on knocking on the walls and floors and leaving no corners unturned in the enormous warehouse. They must have hidden the supplies somewhere. "Come and help me. I don't believe that we can't find them." Jin Dahai also followed her around, but he was calmer than the woman who fell into despair. "I knew there was something strange about them. Look at this place. They must have stored a lot of things at one time." He pointed at a mark on the ground. "Arg! They're so despicable. They left nothing behind." The woman kicked the wall furiously. She then hissed out in pain however when she hit her own wound. "I'm more curious about how they took away so many things." Jin Dahai's expression darkened as his fists clenched so tightly that they were about to break. Meanwhile, Tang Susu received a notification and pressed a button on the micro-earphone without showing it. She heard everything that Jin Dahai and the woman said after they broke into her home. She heard everything through a hidden microphone she had left in her house, which cost her 10 million. Fortunately, the points were well spent. She did not expect Jean Dehai to be so sophisticated and that he could come up with something like that. It seemed that she could no longer let him live. Chapter 53. 53 Despair. You are listening at novelfull.audio. 53 Despair. Nanjing University. In the spacious and cold building housing the bio labs, blood covered the walls in the already ghastly environment. The crawling and dragging had left blood marks all over the place, and they all led to corpses that were chewed up. However, even more of them were zombies with their heads blown off. Black blood and brain matter splattered across the floor until there were no clean spots for anyone to stand on. There were still countless zombies wandering in the corridors. Many of them had just been infected, and their intelligence had not fully deteriorated. They tried to open the sealed entrance and other zombies followed them in. A few hours ago, they had caught this group of people off guard. After a bloody battle, around 8 soldiers attempted to escort over 100 students into a sealed laboratory. Over 50 people survived. I was so scared. I was so lucky. Otherwise, I would have died right there and then. Ahaha. It's said that good fortune follows a great disaster. We'll definitely be able to leave this damn place. Barely escaping from zombies surrounding them instilled the group of young men and women who had yet to step out into society with great confidence. They turned to look gratefully at the girl, who looked as elegant as an orchid in an empty valley and was untainted by even a speck of dust. They thanked her sincerely. Thank you, Chinya. If it were not for you thinking about us and bringing someone to save us, we would already be dead. More than half of the remaining survivors were students from Class 1 of Level 50 Law. In addition, there were a few students from the sports major and the mechanical manufacturing engineering major who more or less knew who Ing Chinya was. There was no joy in Ing Chinya's eyes, however. Her almond-shaped eyes were all teary, which could easily evoke anyone's pity. Unfortunately, Li Lanyu and the others, the 2 men behind her, immediately wanted to comfort her, but when they touched each other's hands, they immediately stared at each other heatedly. Ing Chinya saw all of this. She pursed her lips slightly and carefully hid the slight curve forming on her lips. She walked towards the soldiers in the corner and watched as they simply treated the wounds themselves. The youngest one even broke a bone in a fall. Just as she was about to show her concern. Ms. Ing, you have lied to us, haven't you? He Chang said in an icy tone. Cheng was never here. Chang. A stern-looking middle-aged man stopped him. Ms. Ing is Cheng's friend. Show her some good manners. However, when he said the word friend, his tone was filled with sneers. Ing Chinya blushed and didn't dare to raise her head out of embarrassment. Regardless, it's all my fault. I shouldn't have brought you here without understanding the whole situation. But why would Yu Cheng end up at Suadi Lake Garden? If she remembered correctly, that was where the Tang family moved to, right? She stopped herself from thinking too much, as guilt was written all over her face. When the group of men saw she was about to cry, they immediately panicked. Chang, apologized to the girl. They pushed and shoved him, wishing that they could heap this trouble on him. He Chang then said unwillingly, I was being too inconsiderate. But I saw that you guys were so happy. I'm curious if you guys have a way to leave this place. When he said the last sentence, his tone could not help but be a little sarcastic. Ing Chinya's expression changed slightly. We should be able to wait for help. Their hearts sank. There was no response. Could help ever arrive on time? As soon as she left, the middle-aged man, who was the leader of their team, immediately lowered his voice. We don't have enough time, hurry. Pick yourselves up and get the hell out of here. I'll stay behind and protect them. Captain, several of them muttered in disbelief. Don't forget why we're here, maggots. A soldier's duty is to obey orders, and I order you to leave immediately. No, the group gritted their teeth. A few of the younger ones even had their eyes turned red. We'll leave together. If we die, we'll die together too. You can forget about it. We can't leave even if we want to now. He Chang, who was leaning against the glass window, looked out and cursed. He quickly picked up a sniper rifle, looked at the magazine, and then let his hands hang dejectedly. We'll wait for our death now. The students, who were still glad that they survived moments earlier, were stunned. It was as if a bomb had detonated inside their mind. "WH. What do you mean?" He Chang was about to tell them with little care as he had had enough of them already. The radio that had been thrown aside suddenly began to come to life. Chapter 54. 54 Armory, Collecting Weapons. You are listening at NovelFull.audio. 54 Armory, Collecting Weapons. Can anyone read me? This is the South City Military. We have received the distress call from Nanjing University. Update us on your current situation. Over. The students were stunned for a moment, then they burst into cheers. We're saved. We're saved. Even the normally calm soldiers couldn't help but be overjoyed. He Chang rushed over and eagerly reported their situation in detail. BL.net, roger that. We'll head over as soon as possible. Remain stationary and hold on for a few hours. Over and out. How many more personnel do you have? Ammunition. The captain, Luo Feng, was just about to ask for more details when the other party suddenly cut off the conversation. He was stunned for a moment. Then, He Chang also realized that something was wrong. That voice just now, it was unexpectedly young. It's easy on the ears too, it's a female. I feel like she's very young. Some of the students were also quite puzzled. Why do I feel the voice sounds a little familiar? On the other side, Tang Susu was just about to put down the radio when the whole family looked at her skeptically. It's not that I want to impersonate them. I mean, you can see with your own eyes. Tang Susu looked around and her peach-shaped eyes were slightly darkened. They had rushed all the way to the largest military base in South City without even having the time to take a sip of water today. They wanted to ask for help. Be it manpower or weapons, it shouldn't be difficult to get them with the identity of Yu Chang's uncle. However, to everyone's surprise, all the soldiers here had turned into zombies, and they were even more ferocious than normal zombies. To not waste any more time, they each put on an invisibility talisman and found the armory here with no obstacles as they ignored Yu Chang's shock. As soon as they opened the entrance, they saw a shocking amount of guns, shells, and boxes of ammunition. Everyone gasped in unison. Without a word, they quickly moved all kinds of firearms into the cars before the invisibility talismans lost their effect. As 2 cars weren't enough, Tang Susu ordered Yu Chang to drive the military Hummer that was parked not that far away over. When Yu Chang listened to her command, he knew that it was not because of the car. As if he knew that she was deliberately sending him away, he walked away in silence. Since when did he become so obedient? Tang Mingqi was deep in thought. He. Tang Mingqiu quickly loaded a gun as murderous intention quickly filled his eyes. By the time Yu Chang slowly drove the car over, Tang Susu had already cleaned up all the firearms on the second floor. Congratulations on completing the A.Rank weapon collection mission. You have been awarded 10 points. She had left the free mission on the table for a long time, with no opportunity to complete it. She had finally done it. Tang Susu realized that even though it was her choice on whether to complete the free mission, there wouldn't be any new free missions if she didn't complete it. What a pain. By the time they finished loading the third car, there were few firearms left on the first floor. Mr. Tang quietly stopped Tang Susu, saying, "Leave some for the others. Just in case someone comes here to look for them and finds nothing." Tang Susu wanted to say, what if the bad guys wanted to get these weapons? However, she only let out a "sure" and agreed with Mr. Tang's request. She had already collected plenty, anyway. Meanwhile, Mr. Tang was like a child who had just been given candy. Even his deep frown had relaxed a bit. Tang Susu's heartstring was pulled. That was the reason she chose to take part in the rescue mission. She couldn't take her family's tolerance and acceptance of her for granted. Love was two-way, and she had to consider their feelings and thoughts, too. When they were about to leave, a group of zombies came from all directions like a tide. Their excited roars were like a special language that attracted even more hungry zombies. The last thing they lacked at this time was ammunition. It differed from the time when they had just arrived and they were forced to fight in melee because they had to save their ammunition, worried that they couldn't find more here. F***ck, that's so cool. After a burst of concentrated and satisfying gunshots, Tang Mingqiu was like a big, excited dog. He let out a roar and jumped into the military Hummer. He then stepped on the accelerator and drove away in zigzags. The rest of the family looked in the direction he was driving toward and suddenly remembered something. I think he didn't have his driver's license yet. Chapter 55. 55 Forced March. You are listening at novelfull.audio. 55 Forced March. Tang Susu felt relieved knowing that her third brother had learned how to drive on the road. Speaking of which, they were twins and had just come of age. Both hadn't gotten a driver's license yet. However, there were many things that her family had never asked her about. Were they really not suspicious of her? Or did they choose to accept her? Just as Tang Susu was feeling a little nervous, her eldest brother patted her on the head. You don't want to drive anymore. I want to. Tang Susu loved to drive. When she was under too much pressure in the past, she would speed on the highways to release her frustrations. No matter what car was in her hands, they would also become her toys to manipulate as she wished. Yu Qing cleared his throat. Do you want me to drive? He asked clumsily, but Tang Susu didn't get him at all. No, thanks. Then, she unwrapped a fruit-flavored candy with one hand and steered the wheel with the other as she chased after Tang Mingqiu's car smoothly and ferociously. Tang Mingqi and Mr. Tang were at the back of the group, protecting the red car in the middle of the convoy as if they were protecting something fragile and precious carefully. The three cars sped through the night like phantoms. The once prosperous city had crumbled, with its noises silenced and its lights extinguished. Zombie roars would echo from all corners of the city every once in a while. On the highways that were built like spiderwebs, the streetlights flickered even after they were in disrepair. The flashes only amplified the terrifying ambience permeating the streets. They could see overturned cars and mutilated corpses everywhere under the faint light. As they drove along the highway, they thought to themselves that perhaps hell would look something like this. Tang Susu's expression tightened as she looked straight ahead. In the beginning, there were only ordinary zombies. Their attack power wasn't strong, but their numbers were skyrocketing. Tang Mingqiu was leading the way as he ran through countless zombies. However, many of them would still hit her car. One of them fell from mid-air and smashed right into the windshield of their car. Ink like black blood splattered everywhere and even their rotten flesh was crushed into a smudge. Mrs. Tang almost vomited as she covered her mouth and turned her face to the side. However, Tang Susu stepped on the brakes to shake off the corpse before speeding off. Yu Qing had had so many surprises that he could no longer be surprised. But even then, there was still this small sliver of suspicion lingering in his mind. Was this person the same Tang Susu that he knew? If we don't pretend to be the South City military and they found out that there are only a few of us, they won't tell us the actual situation they're in or any details. Instead, they'll persuade us to leave and not to come close. Yu Qing spun his head toward her. Was she talking to him? Tang Mingzhou had long understood her intentions. He could only sigh at his sister's cunning. If they were to take part in the rescue mission but were unaware of the actual situation, that would cause them to be in great danger. We can also provide them with faith at the same time. Yu Qing couldn't help but start arguing with her again for calling herself their living faith. Not necessarily. They didn't respond to it in time just now. Given enough time, they'll realize what's going on. It was quite peculiar indeed. Usually, they should be listening to the arrangements and leadership of the people from Nanjing University during such rescue operations. However, Tang Susu had taken the initiative the moment she contacted them, and that startled them. They might not have believed her completely, but they should be in a good mood, right? After driving for more than an hour, Tang Susu said, "Big brother, come and take my place." "I'll do it." Yu Cheng was just about to make a move when Tang Mingzhou had already switched into the driver's seat, not giving him a chance to show off at all. "Susu, take a rest. We still have 2 hours to go," Tang Mingzhou said, and could not help but feel somewhat sorry for her. However, Tang Susu wasn't tired at all. She had other things to do. After her mother helped her put on her seatbelt, she opened the system screen. No one could see her actions when she was interacting with the system, so she entered the points panel with no worry. She had accumulated a total of 185 points. She had killed at least 100 zombies during the day. 008 realized her intentions and tried to stop her with a cry. Tang Susu had once again chosen to upgrade as dazzling lights lit up. She was leveling up from point 3 to point 2. An even more intense pain struck her at that instant. Chapter 56. 56 Losing contact. You are listening at novelfull.audio. 56 Losing contact. Tang Susu clutched the seatbelt and tried her best not to make any sound. Her pretty brows were knit together and she deliberately let her long hair down to cover her tensed expression. She bit her lips so hard that she almost made them bleed. Yu Cheng saw what was happening from the rearview mirror and couldn't help but clench his fist. "Are you feeling uncomfortable?" Before he could finish his sentence, the young woman shot him with a sharp glare. But she didn't know that she looked soft, like a weak little animal trying to thwart its predator by flashing its claws and fangs. But all it did was make her look small and cute. Yu Cheng could feel his heart skip a beat. Tang Mingzhou was so focused on driving as a group of zombies were blocking the road and didn't notice Tang Susu's strange behavior. When he finished dealing with the outside and was about to look at her out of habit, Tang Susu had already passed the 3 minutes of pain and was savoring the surging vitality in her body. Nanjing University was in the older part of the city. The surrounding buildings were dense and dilapidated, with a high local population. That caused the number of zombies within the area to be very distressing. As they drove by, they felt as if they were stuck in a sticky liquid. They could not even cover 100 meters after driving for a long time. Tang Mingchu did not care about anything. He pulled out a hand grenade and threw it, blowing up a group of zombies. Roar. Tang Mingzhou used that chance to overtake him. He couldn't believe what his idiot brother had just done. Under his leadership, the group traveled on a road with fewer zombies. However, it put their driving skills to the test. Tang Mingchu was at the back and he kept knocking into things on the road. It was fortunate that he was driving a military Hummer. Otherwise, others might think that he was driving a bumper car. At midnight, the group of 7 arrived at the edge of Nanjing University, near the Bio Lab building. They parked their cars in an inconspicuous corner in a slow and careful manner. Tang Susu didn't get out of the car as soon as they stopped. Instead, she rolled down the car window a little and extended a gun's barrel out. Thanks to the night vision scope on her gun, she locked onto the zombies who were in the corner and took them out. It was too dark and they might get attacked by these zombies, who kept some of their consciousness. Tang Mingchi did the same thing, but his marksmanship was a little off. Unlike Tang Susu, who could kill a zombie in 1 shot, he often needed 2 to 3 shots. However, his accuracy was getting better and better. After they got out of the car, they then killed the remaining zombies. Mr. Tang hopped over to Mrs. Tang, who was feeling unwell. "Are you all right?" The affection that her parents showed towards each other struck Tang Susu right in the face. Fortunately, she still had 3 brothers with her, who were also struck alongside her. It was midnight. Darkness took over and light faded. It was also the time when the zombies became highly active. It was impossible for them to charge in and throw their lives away. Tang Susu took out the military radio she used some time ago. As the frequency they used differed from that of a civilian radio, it could perform much better. Even if the signal was not good, she could still receive messages. However, after a burst of static, Tang Susu didn't get any response at all. Anyone, come in. Please respond if you copy. Over. BZZ. We're arriving at the bio lab building. What's your sitrep? Over. BZZ. The others realized the seriousness of the situation very quickly and gathered around with stern expressions on their faces. What's going on? Tang Susu seemed to have heard something. She held her breath and held the radio to her ear. It was the sound of heavy breathing, which was like someone pulling an old bellow. And then, a voice that was no louder than a whimper and filled with despair. Quick! Run! At the next second, the deafening roars of countless zombies drowned him. Chow E. Yuching grabbed the radio with shaking hands, clenching it so tight that his veins were showing. No. Please be safe. The sound of his being torn apart and chomped ignored his prayer. They came to him clearly bit by bit, as if to torture him. Chapter 57. 57 The Jade Talisman. You are listening at novelfull.audio. 57 The Jade Talisman. Yuching fell onto his knees as pain overtook him, his broad shoulders trembling. I'm so sorry. This is my fault. This is my entire fault. If he wasn't loitering around, they would have met up at the apartment without issues. Chow E would have already left South City by now, and not ended up becoming zombie food. His eyes turned blood red as rage overwhelmed him. He got up and grabbed his weapon and was about to rush toward the building's entrance. Yuching. Everyone called out to him. Calm down. Mr. Tang yanked him back. Let's make a plan and try our best to save the others. There's no need for that, Yuching smiled bitterly as he looked at the surrounding people. Thank you for accompanying me all the way here. This has nothing to do with you. We can leave together as comrades if I make it back. If I don't, he was silent for a moment and then took off a jade pendant from his neck. Take this to my second uncle. He will get you help. It was in that instance that Tang Mingchu's dissatisfaction with him mostly disappeared. Who wants the jade pendant that you've worn before? Keep it. As soon as he said that, a snow-white hand took the jade pendant. I've accepted it. That shocked everyone from the Tang family. Susu. Tang Susu glanced at the jade pendant. Thinking that it was a smart move, 008 said to her, this is an ancient jade pendant that has been passed down for generations and has an extraordinary origin. It's worth at least 10 million. When it said that, it was drooling. However, it didn't know how significant the jade was. In the plot, Ing Qingya even used this jade tablet to command all the soldiers within the 4 major bases. As Yucheng's second uncle would later ascend to a prominent position, he would hand over all his trusted subordinates and followers to Yucheng after he was in danger. This jade was like the tiger talisman from ancient times. Later, Yucheng would give it to his beloved female lead to play with. Even if Tang Susu couldn't use it, she was more than happy to reduce the female protagonist's power. She then looked up, but we can't accept a reward for doing nothing. If we watch you getting yourself in danger and doing nothing, and then take this jade pendant to your second uncle, what would he think of us? Yucheng could say nothing. I didn't mean it that way. Then I'll take it as payment, Tang Susu said and put it into her pocket without hesitation. The way Yucheng looked at her changed. He understood her good intentions. He felt touched and, in a moment of fervor, he said. If I can come back alive, I promise to marry you. The others who were just about to heave a sigh of relief. Especially Mr. and Mrs. Tang, who looked at him with complicated expressions. Why did it feel like he was treating his marriage as a reward? And felt like he was bestowing it on Susu. Tang Susu was speechless. What are you thinking about? I'm helping you and then I have to sacrifice myself. Are you crazy? Or am I crazy? Well done. Mr. and Mrs. Tang were secretly pleased. They had to let him have a taste of being rejected. However, Yuqing thought she was just embarrassed. After all, Tang Susu used to declare that she would marry no one but him every day. How could she change her mind overnight? After they moved away from the topic, the group did not dare to delay any longer. They were going to put on invisibility talismans and deliver a cache of weapons for the emergency. The invisibility talismans would lose their effects when they reached the bio-lab building, so there should be no risk of them being exposed out in the open. Regardless, the most important thing to them was to save those people. However, just as they were about to put on the invisibility talisman, an unforeseen event occurred. They could hear a large number of footsteps were approaching them and in less than a minute, a throng of people all appeared from the corner. There were about 20 of them. Men and women, young and old, and in groups of 2s and 3s. They were in a sorry state, but they had fierce expressions on their faces as they charged over. Tang Susu and her group were immediately put on high alert. She knew that some humans were 100 times scarier than zombies as she raised the gun in her hand. Stop and don't move a muscle. Who are you? Chapter 58. 58 Expanded Group. You are listening at novelfull.audio. 58 Expanded Group. The leader of the group was a tall and thin man. He quickly motioned for the others to stop. Please don't get us wrong. We don't have any ill intentions. We heard the gunshots and came over. Are you here for the rescue, too? When he said the last sentence, he looked at them with a longing expression. My daughter is still in there and I don't know if she's alive or dead. My wife and I rushed here from outside of the province. Many of these people are here to find their loved ones, and some of them came after receiving the request for help from the soldiers. My son was studying here. Now that it has become a zombie nest. I think he's already dead. No. I won't give up looking for him until I see his body. Tang Susu lowered her gun as she looked at the glint of desperation on the chubby lady's face. My father is a professor in the language department. He didn't come back at all that night. The young man who spoke raised his glasses and wiped at the corner of his eyes. He looked very weak, but a thick layer of blood covered the sickle in his hand. A girl who looked to be about 13 or 14 years old was also among them. Black blood splattered all over her clothes, but her face was unusually determined. I want to find my mother. She is going to be okay. Tang Susu turned to look at another group of people. We're retired soldiers. Me. Me too. Although I can't do much, I can still kill a zombie or two, hee. However, Tang Susu didn't laugh with him. Blood covered his face, and there was a gaping wound in his head. He tied it up with a piece of cloth only and blood was still oozing out. Tang Mingqi took out his first aid kit and bandaged his wound. Even if you want to save someone, don't get hurt yourself. You guys, the others looked at them in disbelief. That's right. We're also here to help with the rescue. Tang Susu's simple words brought them back from the brink of despair. Really? You guys probably don't know the situation inside, there's no time to waste. Come and get a gun. Tang Susu said as she secretly studied their expressions. Good, there was nothing unusual in their expression. Only then did she open the trunk for them. The trunk full of weapons stunned them. There's so many. There was no time to hesitate. Each of them filled up their bags with weapons and they carried the heavy weapons on their backs. Each of them was also holding a gun. The younger ones and the women were using guns with lower recoil. The veterans taught them how to shoot in the shortest time possible. Are you ready? Let's go now. Tang Susu looked up at the moon that had just emerged from the thick clouds. It had already been half an hour since they had arrived. After the peak period, the number of zombies visibly decreased. The team that started with only 7 people had added over 20 people to their group, making the group several times stronger. They all had experience killing zombies, which added a layer of guarantee for their operation. A group of people filed in from the side door and everyone tried their best to keep their voices down. They had only traveled for about 10 meters when a few zombies appeared. In the blink of an eye, Yu Cheng and Tang Mingzhou's joint attack took them all out. The 2 handsome men cooperated seamlessly and their smooth movements made everyone who saw it dumbfounded and admired them in secret. However, no one took Tang Susu seriously. That was because she was so clean, as if she was still living in the world before the end of times. With that harmless and beautiful face of hers, she looked like she was there only to cheer them on. But in the next moment, she disappeared right into thin air in front of their eyes. Where is she? The weak-looking man's voice was filled with fear. She's gone. Chapter 59. 59 The infested bio-lab building. You are listening at novelfull.audio. 59 The infested bio-lab building. Splat. Everyone could hear blood splattering. They turned to look and saw Tang Susu appear in the bushes by the side of the road. The machete in her hand split open the head of a zombie that was lying in ambush in the grass ahead like a watermelon. Growl. The zombie's cold eyes froze as it fell to the ground with a thump. Then, the second, the third, and the 10th. The group of people was stunned. The girl who looked the weakest had such extraordinary combat power. Just who were these people? Why are they so monstrous? How did they dodge so quickly? Can they fly? And that young man blew up a zombie's head with his fist. He didn't even need a weapon. Before they could recover from their shocks, the number of zombies had already increased to the point that they could feel the chills in their spines. However, there was no way to retreat. As they advanced, countless zombies also surrounded them without them knowing. We're finished. We can't fight our way out. The people who realized how many zombies were surrounding them were losing hope. Hopelessness seemed to descend and cloud their hearts. Even their attacks on the zombies were slowing down as if they wanted to stop struggling anymore. Boom! However, it was at this moment that they heard a loud explosion, and countless zombies were blasted into one after another. An opening had appeared thanks to the explosion. Get away, now! After throwing the grenade, Tang Susu then waved at the people behind her who were still hesitating. 2 of them were too slow to act and the zombies latched onto them and dragged them down. Their shrieks shocked everyone out of their hesitation. Run! Run with all your might! No one dared to turn back, for fear that they would lose their lives if they were a second slower. Tang Susu turned around and slashed with the machete in her hand, holding back the zombies from both sides. Countless gray and cold arms extended toward her as hard as they could. She raised her blade with all her strength and spun in a circle, cutting off more than a dozen sharp claws. She made it look so easy, as if she was just harvesting some cabbages. Suddenly, someone among the newly joined crew cried out in despair. Hong Ping! My Hong Ping! The cry startled Tang Susu. She turned around and saw the fat lady scramble into the sea of zombies, ignoring the threat they proposed. Oh my God! What is she doing? The people who saw what happened were shocked. Despite being gnawed on and pulled, the woman tried her best to push through them as her eyes fixed on a figure at the back without blinking. There was a zombie whose face had not rotted fully. He stood at the back of the zombie horde with his head tilted, as if he was wondering why the woman was running toward him. It was obvious that he had just become a zombie and still had some of his consciousness left, but he could no longer understand human emotions. Hong Ping! Blood instantly covered the chubby woman as the zombies gnashed and gnawed on her. She was gasping even when she crawled towards him. Mom's here, don't look. A large hand covered Tang Susu's eyes. Then, a gentle gust blew past her ears, and in the next second, the tragedy completely disappeared from her eyes. Her face hardened as she joined the battle again. This time, her attacks became even more ferocious. With the help of their bombs and armaments, the group cut open a bloody path and they finally arrived at the main entrance of the bio-lab building. However, no one smiled. The door had already been broken open through brute force, and they could see zombies everywhere inside. The automated, sound-controlled lights were already lit up on every floor. That was because there were zombies on every floor. Ednel.co they roared and flashed past the window. There were so many of them that it was impossible to estimate how many there were. The blood-covered glass explained everything. Chapter 60. 60 survivors. You are listening at novelfull.audio. 60 survivors, it's impossible for anyone to survive that. The new group of people panted heavily and their eyes were already red before they could even calm down. The entire Nanjing University has fallen. Yuqing clenched his fists tightly as tears formed in his dark brown eyes. I'm so sorry. No, a clear voice rang suddenly, attracting everyone's attention. Everyone looked at the young girl, who had proven how strong she was, in disbelief. What are you saying? The tall and thin man who was leading his group earlier asked with his voice trembling. He and his wife had relied on their belief that they would definitely find their daughter as they traveled. They had been on the verge of death several times, but they always pulled through in the end. Xiaojie is going to be fine. There should still be survivors. Tang Susu raised her head and looked at the building in front of her. If the female lead died so easily, she wouldn't be the female lead of a Mary Sue-themed romance game. She wanted to see what was going on. Why did the female lead, who was supposed to have already left South City, skip several plots to just appear here together with the soldiers? Nanjing University should not have fallen so early. And the plot of the game was changing so greatly that she could not predict what would happen anymore. Sure enough, not long after she had just finished speaking, a small window on the side opened from the inside. A boy poked his head out and saw them. He waved at them excitedly. Help! We're over here. Come and save us. Everyone looked at where the small window was and began counting. It was the 10th floor, and they immediately felt faint. Not only were they exhausted after slaughtering all their way there, but they were also injured. Unless they were supermen with indestructible bodies, they could never kill their way from the 1st floor to the 10th. Tang Susu had just rubbed her wrist when Tang Mingqi noticed it. He took a spray and applied it to her wrist. He then said in a low voice, "We can't advance any further. We've already done what we can by delivering the weapons here." Tang Mingqiu was even more straightforward than he was. He shouted upstairs and said, "Come down now. We'll help you block the zombies inside from down here." If there was no one guarding the place, zombies would continue to pour in. So, someone had to stay here to guard the door. What? The boy raised his voice in disbelief and pulled back his head. "The people down there wanted us to go down," he said to the students behind him. An outcry burst out in the group. Are they joking? Can't they see that the entire building is already infested with zombies? We're forced to keep running up and we've already reached the top floor. We can't go down. They're soldiers, aren't they? Why aren't they coming to save us? I'm so scared. Are they going to leave us here?" Ing Qingya quickly consoled the girl. "They won't, Ziyue. Since they're already here, they won't leave us in the lurch." The male student yelled back at Tang Susu about what they thought about the situation. "There are just too many zombies here. Come up now. We can't hold them off for long." Yuqing raised his voice and said, "Find something like a rope and throw it down. We have weapons. You can take them and use them." As they shouted back and forth, they attracted more zombies from below. The others barely dealt with them and bought them time to communicate. After saying that, the boy retracted his head again and conveyed to his companions excitedly, they brought weapons. I think I saw a hemp rope somewhere. Throw one end of it down so that we can pull the weapons back up. Are you crazy?